All right, I'll call the meeting to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This is an open meeting of the Seward, Nebraska governing body. The city of Seward abides by the Nebraska Open Meetings Act in conducting business. A copy of the Nebraska Open Meetings Act is displayed on the north wall of this meeting room facility as required. Disclosure of meeting recording process is posted in the meeting room. A participant sign-in sheet is available for use by any citizen addressing the council. Presenters shall approach the podium, state their name and address for the clerk's record, and are asked to limit their remarks to 5 minutes. There's also a sign-in sheet up on there that you'll see if you choose to speak. All remarks shall be directed to the mayor, who shall determine by whom any appropriate response shall be made. The city of Seward reserves the right to adjust the order of items on this agenda if necessary, and may elect to take action on any of the items listed. Please call the roll.
Plat.
Here.
Colterman.
Here.
Streisand.
Here.
Camprith.
Here.
Singleton.
Here.
Hendricks.
Here.
Wilkin.
Here.
We are going to adjust some of the items on this evening's agenda. We're going to go through, and it shouldn't take long to finish the agenda and then come back to item 2, the public hearing. So first we have the draft minutes of February 15th, 2022.
Move approved.
Second.
The motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, please register your votes. Please display the votes.
Voting in favor: Wilkin, Beck, Camprith, Colterman, Singleton, Streisand, Hendricks. 7-0.
All right, the next 3 items are the consent agenda.
Move to approve. Second.
The motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please register your votes. Please display the votes.
Voting in favor: Wilkin, Beck, Camprith, Colterman, Singleton, Streisand, Hendricks. 7-0.
All right, first public hearing this evening is a presentation and discussion of functioning and progress on the Seward Economic Development Plan. Greg?
Yes. Pursuant to the state statutory requirement, every 6 months we are required to give you a report from what is known as the CARC. That's the Citizens Advisory Review Committee. They are the apparatus that oversees the LB 840 program. They're not the approving body. They're not what we call the LB 840 committee. And so back in February, I met with that body and presented all of the financials for the last 6 months, updated them on any new loans or grants or forgivable items that we had, walked them through any questions they had, and then ultimately made a recommendation, which is this report you see in front of you. The findings were as follows. The LB 840 activity report was distributed to the CARC in advance of the meeting. City Administrator walked the CARC through the activities. Between July 1st, 2021 and December 31, 2021, CARC had no questions or concerns. Copy of the general ledger reports were included in reports of all transactions. The CRC felt all transactions listed in the financial reports appeared to be appropriate. And then I also, the city administrator, noted that the program would become due for a reauthorization vote by the citizens of Seward in the following year, and a recommendation on the program funding levels may be requested from the CARC in the future. And so those are things we talked about. I can answer any questions you have on the report. Otherwise, I think a motion to approve the report.
We'll leave the public hearing.
Oh, public hearing, yeah.
If the council has any immediate questions or comments, otherwise I open up the public comment portion of the public hearing on item number 1. Then from the public wish to speak on item number 1 at this time, please come forward. Seeing no one, I'll close the public comment portion of that public hearing and return to the council for any further discussion or questions.
I'll move to approve.
We have a motion, is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second, is there any further discussion? Seeing none, please register your votes. Please display the votes.
Voting in favor: Wilkin, Beck, Camprith, Colterman, Singleton, Streisand, Hendricks. 7-0.
We're gonna skip over item number 2 and then we'll come back to it once we finish up these remaining items. We have under administrative items number 1, request from the Suicide Prevention Coalition for the 2022 Walk for Hope to be held on April 2nd. We have 2 items. A is permission for Suicide Prevention Coalition to utilize the Plum Creek Trail for an event, and then B is permission for Suicide Prevention Coalition to offer vendor sales in the Plum Creek Sports Complex parking lot. Welcome.
Come on up.
Please state your name and address for the record.
Andrea Baker, Andrea, last name Baker. Address is 1942 Denton Road in Pleasantdale. So I'm here on behalf of the Seward County Suicide Prevention Coalition, and we are hoping to host the 4th annual Walk for Hope at the Plum Creek Trail. This has been a community-wide event that we've had for the last 3 years, and it's been housed at Concordia University. But we are hoping to make it more of a community event, so we were hoping to go to Plum Creek Trails this year to host the walk. It would be April 2nd from 5 to 8, and we would have food trucks, we would have bounce houses, just different activities, plus the walk, and this would be open to all community members.
Hey Greg, you wanna kinda give context as to why this is before the council?
Yes, two purpose. One, obviously the use of the trail. The trail will still be publicly available for people to walk on, but it gives notice that we're gonna be putting on this event. The second one is also just utilizing it for the event. They also provided us liability insurance, and all of those elements are involved. Kind of similar to street closures, but we're not actually closing the street. And then the last one is the second item on there, which is any time that we allow a vendor to come on public property, we do need permission from the city council to have any sort of sales on those public properties. And so we've done that in the past, and so this allows, generally, just like we do at the 4th of July, on the city streets and stuff, is just gives a general permission for this, the coalition to do that down in Plum Creek Sports Complex parking lot.
Any questions or comments from the council? Under item 1A, this is the permission for Suicide Prevention Coalition to utilize the Plum Creek Trail for event. We would entertain a motion.
So moved to approve.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, please register your votes. Please display the votes.
Voting in favor, Wilken, Beck, Camper, Colterman, Singleton, Streisand, Hendricks, 7-0.
And on item 1B, to allow for vendor sales, we entertain a motion as well.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, please register your votes. Please display the votes.
Voting in favor, Wilken, Beck, Camper, Colterman, Singleton, Streisand, Hendricks, 7-0.
Thank you. Item number 2 is the resolution amending policy for job description changes, allowing for city administrator discretion for non-appointed positions. Greg?
Yeah, this was an item that came out of discussion we had with the Personnel Finance and Audit Committee at their last meeting. It was noted that every time we have a job description change, current policy, which is not specifically stated anywhere, but that's how we've been doing it, and it's kind of just been, well, that's what we do before, that's practice, so we'll just keep doing it. We were noting with a lot of these lower tiered job descriptions, we're changing one thing because we're updating finally because we have an opening, but it makes it so that with council approval, sometimes we're getting 3 to 4 weeks out before we can actually get it advertised, and then we have to wait the period for the advertisement to see if we have quality candidates, do interviews and everything else. It continues to slow down the process, and so we brought that forth to the Personnel Finance and Audit Committee, and we made the recommendation that the lower tiered job descriptions that we have that are not appointed positions, which is predominantly department heads that would be appointed by the mayor and then approved by the city council, that we would like to have general permission for the city administrator and administration to make adjustments to those. We're not changing title, we're not changing pay scale, but if we need to add, hey, you need some updated computer skills that are more 21st century, we'd like to be able to just make some of those administrative changes, get it out into the independent, get it up online and start getting jobs. Every day we waste with an open position with this labor market is just burdensome for us. It gets really hard, and I know especially with jobs when they're single ones, like the custodian at the library. We had to make some changes on that because Bob was awesome and he did very specific things, and it was going to be hard to track somebody down. We wanted to make that change, but we prolonged it 3 weeks by having to get back to you. And so those are the kind of things we want to be able to do. Again, if titles change, or if we're changing salaries or anything like that, that would come before the city council, and obviously all department heads and appointed positions. Would also, full job descriptions would still come, so.
Any questions or comments? Yes, Matt?
Would the council be notified of those changes?
We can, yeah, we can just send it out and have Derek sit out and say, hey, here's an update that we did, and let you know.
And again, these are just the non-appointed positions. Obviously, if it's a appointed position, then you would approve that ahead of the actual appointment.
So you could probably put in Butcher's report out. Would that be something we could do?
You could put it in
We
your
can,
report.
yeah.
if you want.
So,
That way if we have a question, we can ask for explanation.
yep. And usually they're, as always, they're usually around the time when they open up and we're hiring. But we can have, a lot of what you see in my report is me extrapolating from the reports from other ones. So Derek, in your report, once you make those changes, just note that you updated it, and then it will pass on to you guys.
Any other questions or comments? Otherwise, I'd ask someone to introduce the resolution.
There it is.
Alright. The resolution has been introduced and is designated as resolution number 2022-11. Would anyone like to move that this resolution be passed and adopted?
So moved.
Second.
A motion and a second. Is there further discussion? Seeing none, please register your votes. Please display the votes.
Voting in favor, Wilken, Beck, Camper, Colterman, Singleton, Streisand, Hendricks, 7-0.
Yeah. Ready to do your report?
I can do my report now. I can answer any questions. I think two of the biggest ones leading into the month of March, you may have seen on social media today. I'm working with the golf course and also public properties on the golf course turf and the baseball fields. Spring sports seasons have started. The baseball players, I saw them out yesterday up at the middle school. That turf is not in a position to be practiced on or anything else. We were out there with the high school coach today. Concordia is off to the south for a few practices, and then I think they go on spring break. And so we were out today in a training with the volunteer fire department, working with their grass rig, which is perfectly situated to help us water that. As you know, if you've been watering your lawn, you really shouldn't be turning on sprinklers until we get broken from the freeze. And it's going to be down into 17 here again in the long-term outlook. So we can't turn on those sprinkler systems. It is too much for us to go back through and winterize that again and try to catch the good weather. Too much of a risk, the cost is too much. And so we've been trying to come up with solutions to try and get that turf to start going. And so thank you so much to the volunteer fire department. Dan Kaler and his crew out at the golf course. Dan's been taking the truck out and watering it by hand himself, especially the greens, getting them going. And the teams with both the softball and baseball at Concordia, and then Brock Anderson and the high school baseball team have been very supportive of that. And so we appreciate their support and understanding what's going on. But it's going on everywhere. We heard that Milford, York, a lot of their golf courses are closing down until they get this under control. And so we're going to do our best, but please bear with us. This is drought we haven't seen in a very, very long time. So other than that, again, continuing on, Derek and myself, we got the Wellness Center ballot question over to Sherry, and so we got that all taken care of and finalized as that was approved at the last city council meeting, so all that was delivered. And today, Councilmember Streisand and myself were a part of a meeting where we got to see the first renderings put together by BVH, who was our CCFF grant designer, and so very, very neat. We're excited, and I know the committee is excited to show that to you guys and to the public here very shortly. They're going to do some fine tuning on those, but it was neat to see the fruit of our labors and what is the potential for us. So other than that, I can answer any questions. I know we got a lot on our table tonight.
I just have a quick question with the golf course that usually opens April 1st-ish, right?
March 7th. That's Cody emailed out and put on social media. His goal was March 7th. The weather was nice this week, but we're trying to keep everybody off. It's mainly carts.
Okay,
Carts
that
are
was
the
my
problem.
question. Are you gonna eliminate those for the time being until?
Lincoln already has.
Lincoln has it for another week, but
Yeah.
we heard that some of them are up to 3 weeks out now, based on what they think the status of theirs.
It's gonna be a day-to-day type of evaluation, just because if we were to get some moisture, all of a sudden the grass can rebound and withstand some of that pressure. Otherwise, you'd hate to get it trampled on now, and then in 4 months from now, people are all mad because
Right.
the course isn't in good shape, so.
And primary concern is the green. Like
Yeah.
the green cannot even be walked on in this state. And he's
So
hand watering it
yeah.
every day, but you cannot have even walkers walking across it. It needs to be left alone.
Didn't know I'd have that problem
And
someday, so here we are.
It is
We're
2022.
learning about the greens on the golf course. Any other questions or comments, or entertain a motion to accept the report?
I'll make a motion to accept the report.
Second.
Your motion and a second, please register your votes, please display the votes.
Voting in favor, Wilken, Beck, Camper, Colterman, Singleton, Streisand, Hendricks, 7-0.
Alright, now we'll go back to item number 2, under public hearings. This is the preliminary plat of Prairie View Addition. And so just so people understand kind of the process here, because it's important to me that this is as fair as possible, and give people an opportunity to speak. So we limit it to 5 minutes. When we first start this, we'll have city officials or employees, as well as a developer will speak to kind of set the context of what we're talking about. And we have the chair from the Planning and Zoning Commission here as well to give a review of what happened at the Planning and Zoning meeting last night. Then the council will have an opportunity to ask questions of those individuals. At a time where it seems like there may be a break in the action, I'll open up the public comment portion of the public hearing like we did on the last one. And then anyone from the public is welcome to come up and speak at the podium. I will time the 5 minutes, and when we get to, if you get to 5 minutes, I will signal you to finish up your thought so we can give someone else an opportunity to speak. But that'll be your one time to speak. Once the public comment portion is over, then we'll return to the council for their discussion, and then they may have questions of you when you're up there, and that won't count against your time, but that may extend your time if they have a lot of questions for you. Otherwise, we'll return it to the council for their discussion, and then that's it. There won't be any, that we don't have back and forth. The public's not allowed to ask questions of the council, but because this is really an opportunity to hear your opinion. We want to know what your thoughts are on this item, and so that's why we hope we can have an orderly hearing in that manner. So with that, Greg, did you want to say anything to start?
No, we'll just go ahead and, there's Tim, do you wanna kick it off, or do we wanna go ahead and, just like last time, we'll go ahead and let Bob introduce the?
Yeah, I'd let Bob
Yeah,
set the stage.
alright.
Bob Benish, 1640 Normandy Court. I'm with Aspen Builders. Good evening, guys, ladies. So yes, we went through Planning Commission last night. Basically what we've got here is, we have another subdivision. We're really excited about this one. We are just finishing Shoal Creek. We're building the last home there right now. And really what kind of triggered our interest here has been the amount of phone calls that we receive. Gosh, I mean, right now we probably have a list of 10 people that have called wanting information on this and wanting to move here and live here or upgrade from their current home. I would say of the 10, 9 of those people grew up here. And I think that's really important because, you know, you have a great community, people go off to college, they get married, they want to raise their family, they want to come back to Seward. There's not a lot of options right now for housing, and it's that way all across the country. I mean, Lincoln, Omaha, wherever, it's bad. So I think a development like this not only caters for your growth, but it also brings those people back here. It gives them a chance to raise their families here just like they were raised. And I think that was the most impressive thing that I noticed, you know, in all the phone calls that I have been receiving is, you know, why do you want to move back to Seward? What's going on? And it's schools and it's the town. And so that being said, you know, we identified this property and we worked, you know, gosh, it's been almost a year since we offered on this property, and to be honest with you, we kind of took our time. We knew there was going to be some major drainage issues in this property. It's not something you can just lay it out, present it, and go full steam. It took quite a bit of engineering and costs. And I think we like the product that we have. We worked very closely with the city, you know, and getting their opinions. We met with the neighborhood association to the next to us, to the west, just to make sure if there were some of their concerns that we could address, and we actually came up with some great ideas at our meeting. We actually reduced density just a little bit, backing up to them, because I was kind of amazed how many of those people were actually looking at maybe building a little bit bigger house, which opens their house up to somebody new, you know, I mean, so it's kind of a neat process. You know, we've listened, we've tried to identify, you know, anything we can do to make things work. both financially and, you know, logically. You know, we've done things like a little mini park in here, so we'll have a tot park where people can walk to. So it's got some great amenities. There were some things we wanted to add to it, things like townhomes and things like that, but it just didn't fit this piece very well. We hope in the future that we will have a piece identified that we can do things like townhomes or apartments or other types of housing that you guys kind of need here. So, with that being said, when we design the lots, we have some starter home lots, we have some medium lots, and we have some larger lots. Our larger lots, you know, you'll find will be more of those that back up to common area. They just tend to be a little more expensive, and that's where you want to build your bigger, nicer. But the great thing about this is I think we can incorporate all different types of homes in this neighborhood without a hitch. Just like we did at Shoal Creek, we had a starter home in there, and we have $700,000 home. So I think you'll see a lot of that here. Trees, we really wanted to salvage as many trees as we can. So we're salvaging all the trees along the highway, obviously, other than the scrub trees that we'll take out. In the middle, we've identified kind of an area that we're gonna try to keep also as trees. So we're hoping that helps make the neighborhood just a little more attractive. Grading, I talked just for a second that we really worked hard on identifying that. We, and correct me if I'm wrong, but we have reduced the amount of water, the flow, by 40% from what it was before. And I'm not saying we reduced it, it's still there, but it exits the property 40% slower than what it is currently exiting.
I'll have you just finish up your thought. And
Sure.
I'm guessing there'll be some questions.
Absolutely. So we worked really hard on that drainage, and I think we've got our whip.
Okay, thank you.
You absolutely.
I'm also excited just about a development I know. When I first became mayor, John Hughes, who worked for the city at the time, had told me that this property was gonna be developed any day now. And to get ready, because we're gonna have to annex out East Seward Street all the way to the highway, and we're gonna move the utilities are gonna have to be put out there. That was 12 years ago. So I think everyone assumed in the community at some point this would get developed. I'm glad that we finally saw some movement on that. Are there any questions from, yes?
So how'd you come out with association with the water, with everybody?
The outlot.
Yep.
So, they got to me yesterday at 7 o'clock, the list of changes they would like to our agreement.
Mhm.
So just FYI, we are assuming their detention cell. As you know, right now, their detention cell is in major need of redoing. It's full of silt, and the outflow structure's wrong. It's kind of a mess. Probably $40,000-$50,000 worth of repairs to it. So what we're going to do is assume it into our project, fix it, clean it up. There'll be a new outflow structure put in, and then they are simply gonna contribute yearly to the maintenance of their stormwater. And so we're just working out the final details of that. They wanted a lifetime maximum, will not exceed thing, and I think it was doable. All the things were doable. They got it. We're waiting on their attorney, Tim Moll, to get with our attorney to fix it, and then we can sign it, and we're done. Or vote on it, and then we're done. So, but it's all positive. It's all workable. So yes.
In particular, like for me, you know, a lot of like the corridor areas that are very visible to people driving through Seward, whether it's the downtown square or the highways, is one of the pluses, I think, is that you're going to have a really good first impression when people are coming in on Highway 34 from the Lincoln direction to see all these new homes. And I think it gets a sense of that there are things happening in Seward, and so it's very exciting to see this project. And I know we've talked about that retention cell being an issue, and so this is a good way to make you pay to clean it up. Wait, no, that came out.
Well, it'll work great for us, because we'll incorporate, if we're doing it at the same time, it's not gonna cost
Yeah.
there, but.
No.
I mean,
And it
it's
probably, in the long run, actually helps you design your
It
drainage,
does.
because it gives you a much better egress point for all that
Yes.
water. That would be a little trickier if
Yes.
someone else controlled that
It
retention,
fixes
so.
everything, it really does.
Yeah, good. Any other questions or comments from the council?
So, Bob, one other question, so it's on record. So can you add any more water to downstream, or do you gotta maintain the flow what it is right now for that outlet? Can you
So-
add any more water to it?
Your outlet, ours,
The one that's currently the association?
the HOAs, it will be incorporated into ours,
Mhm.
so, but the amount of water leaving the site will not be increased. It'll be the same amount, obviously the same amount of water, but the flow, the speed of the flow is the important thing. And we've reduced the speed by 40%. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
So there'll be times when, and we have 2 detention cells on our side, so there'll be times when you get the big heavy downpour, there'll be water that will pool up in those, and then it lets it out slowly, so.
Gotcha.
I
Yes,
have
listen.
a question. I was at the meeting last night, but I had to leave early, and in your opening statement, you had mentioned that as far as density, you guys kind of slimmed that down a
We
little
did.
bit. Was that conversated last night at the meeting as far as the amount of lots?
The amount of lots are, 170, and I
Okay.
think it was, we only reduced them a couple, but what we did is we took lots that backed up to those people, we took one of those out, and we made those bigger. We also do have a 20-foot outlot between the 2 lots, from their subdivision to ours, that we'll maintain. And we're kind of doing that for twofold. One is there's some drainage that comes down through there that we're going to divert into our pond instead. Right now, I think it goes into their yards. We're gonna take that water, get it into our pond. So we need the 20 feet to get a nice swale in there so we can control that. The other thing is anytime you have common area in your backyard, your house is worth more money, you know? And having a house back right up to them might be kind of I wouldn't say it's unfair, it's just, it's not what they've had for a long period of time. So having that outlot behind them is maybe gonna soften it a little bit.
And then when are you planning on first dirt removal? When are you?
Well, what time is it? No, actually, as soon as we can get the grading packets out and hire the contractor and get rolling, we would do that. The key there is to hit as early as possible so you can get your infrastructure in and get paving done by, fall, because it could start to rain. I know it's dry now, but it could start to rain the whole month of April. We don't know. So you always want to plan ahead.
And then for all your earth moving equipment, dump trucks, what's your main route you guys gonna follow?
Yep, well, we do not want, obviously, we're not going to come through your neighborhoods, and I've told the neighbors at the meeting, if you see a big piece of equipment come through there, please call us, we wanna know. Because we don't want them coming through there, we have a driveway, we have all these other access points, we can get in, we don't need to drive through there. Even during construction, we're gonna promote utilizing the back way. It's just gonna be better for the streets and for the neighborhood.
Timeline on your phases.
So phase 1, obviously, hopefully this year. It really depends. Shoal Creek was 26 lots or 28 lots, I can't remember. Gosh, that took me almost 3 years to build out. Now, I think this could be 1 year, but I really think it's a 2-year per phase, maybe. It's just hard to predict, especially with everything going on in the news right now, just, it's hard to predict what's.
And how many lots will you predict in that first phase?
In the first phase,
What were you thinking?
34 or 5.
Okay. Just to be able to kind of have a
Yeah.
perspective
So
on
it's
what
kind
you're
of-
talking about.
Yeah.
Similar to Shoal Creek as far as the
Yes,
numbers.
kind of like the first phase, and
Yeah.
so, yeah, I mean, you really just can't afford to do much more than that, just interest of eat alive, and so, but yeah, and I think controlled, we talked about managed, controlled growth, I think, nice little phases, and, I think it's gonna look nice for that one.
Greg, did you have something?
Well, Bob, there is two projects that will be in cohesion with this that provide context to some of the stuff that's gonna go on. They'll be bid together, but we have two anticipated, capital projects. One is the paving of East Seward that we're gonna do jointly with the county that we're working on. This would be from the end of the current concrete hard surface at the end of the city limits all the way out to Highway 34. Likely, you will see those plans and specs and be able to put that out for bid at the next city council meeting. Jake with SEH is the designer on that, and he's been working with Mike trying to finish up and fine tune that project. And so we'll enter in hopefully to an interlocal with the county to help cover a portion of that, and then we will utilize that to do that. It'll include lighting, and then probably one of the biggest ones is it will, pursuant to NDOT instruction and permitting, it will reconfigure the intersection with East Seward as we know it and the highway and add lighting to that as well. Right now, there's no lighting. You go there at night, you slam on the brakes to try and turn because you're almost gonna miss your turn. This will light that intersection and provide a little bit more safety. One of the questions that came up last night, right now, under current designs and warrants, there won't be any deacceleration or turn lane. Under current warrants, the state will dictate that to us. When they say, hey, we did a traffic count, we got this many people turning there, you guys need to install or we'll install an NDOT approved turn lane, then they'll do that. So, but that will all be dictated by NDOT. The other element of that project is the drainage system that is undersized under the current Evergreen lane. I think some of that piping has started to fail and it needs to be fixed and also properly sized to what we need and what kind of drainage we're seeing there now. That's not comparable to this development, and it should be done whether this development goes through or not, just like East Seward. Our plan for East Seward was independent and started way before this development. And we will continue through that because that's our plan. But that will be resized, and then that will properly handle the flow of stormwater coming off this, also the Evergreen or the Valley View neighborhood, and properly distribute that and then push it back around and bring it underneath the highway. And so that's been undersized for quite a while, and so we'll ensure that all the calculations and information Mike's been working on with SEH will be in cohesion with this development should it go through. So those are two projects we're working on that are city responsibilities that we will most likely see on March 15th. You'll see the plans and specs and put that out for bid, and then that will be constructed this year.
Will they be constructed at the same time, or will they be constructed so that they can utilize
We'll
that
phase
East
them,
Seward
yep.
Street?
And so likely you would
West
come in
doesn't
and
get
have somebody do
impacted.
just Evergreen, and then people in that neighborhood can get it, will go out through East Seward or back through to Highway 34 and loop around. Once that's finished, then that neighborhood can come out and we will start the process of reconstructing and putting in the concrete on East Seward out to the highway. You won't do them at the same time, you'll trap those people. And it'll exacerbate a problem you're gonna hear about
Plus, you'll hear
a
from
I
me.
minute.
just wanted that on record is all I
So
wanted.
it has to
They
be
weren't gonna be done at the same
phased,
time.
when we bid it, we will ask that it be phased.
Okay.
So that there's always multiple routes of ingress and egress for neighbors over there. Otherwise, you're gonna exacerbate a whole lot of problems that you're gonna hear about. So
Start date.
start date for that is as soon as we feel like it can be reasonably bid and get a decent bid out of it. Costs haven't done much right lately, but gone up.
Because I know he wants to start soon.
Mhm.
So are we wanting to start soon?
We shouldn't have too much of a problem. The other good part about Bob's project and bringing in some heavy equipment for grading and stuff is he can probably bring a lot of that over the current county portion of East Seward. And as long as we're moving forward with our concrete project, it's not too terrible to beat that up too much. We'll obviously keep it in decent shape, but then
But you should be able to access off of the residential
Yep.
access off the highway too.
at some point NDOT though, if they,
I know.
we're gonna try and do our best to manage that, but
There is still a building
that came up-
building
that came up last
needs
night, and that is a private access driveway.
Mhm.
That is not a public access, and so at the point that they determine that it's become unsafe, NDOT will tell you to cease and desist if it was causing any sort of safety issue.
But we're gonna use it like crazy till.
Yes.
Yes, so,
One question though, once you remove that lane, because eventually you're gonna move that private lane, will that open the opportunity for the turn lane that it will not?
That's all dictated by the state and traffic counts, so we don't have any say on that.
How
They'll tell us when it's time.
How many years have you been a builder?
31.
Okay, and in that 31 years, are you familiar with like what low residential density, medium, and all of that? So in your lows, is that go off of like a certain amount of lots can be developed in that type of an area, or does that have to go off of the size of lots? Does that make sense?
It's the amount of
Dimension?
units.
It's the amount of units, so
Yeah.
usually what does that,
So like a high density development is apartments where you're getting lots of units. Medium density is typically townhomes. And low density, low to medium, low density is typically just residential housing.
okay, and so,
It's not dictated though as far as number per unit, unless you have something in your,
do you have something in our code book that states?
there might.
Yep, there's something in the comp plan,
Yeah, I think there might.
Right.
and it's defined in
We
the,
define low density as a lot of 7,200 square feet,
Okay.
and medium density is 5,000 square feet.
Okay.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments from the council?
One other one, Bob, that timeline of, people after a certain time of the day, they don't wanna come home and hear earth moving equipment. Are you going to respectfully, help the residents and
Yeah,
shut down in
You know, it's a tough thing. We do it
I know.
in construction, like in the summertime when it's 110 degrees out and the guys wanna start at 6 AM and quit at 1 o'clock, and I get the phone calls of people hammering, it's like, hey guys, gotta wait at least till 7, But, usually dirt guys don't deal with it. It is in construction, we get the calls and we're happy to relay the message, hey, people are complaining, you can't be doing that. Yeah.
So with that, Tim, did you wanna add anything? Or
No,
Mike?
I think if we're ready for Chairman Holman.
Okay, Ron, welcome. We made you sit in the front row, so
Yeah,
sorry about that.
thank you, Mr. Mayor. Ron Wallman, 2574 Waverly Road, Chairman of the Seward, City of Seward Planning Commission. Had I think a very good meeting last night. Had a lot of these same folks here. I think very respectful, a lot of input that was very valuable. The Planning Commission did recommend approval of this preliminary plat. I'll speak first to the need and what we saw as positives. The first is that it does, of course, meet our comprehensive plan. It is, been, as the mayor mentioned, targeted for development for quite a period of time, and it does make sense for the city of Seward. At some point, we had to get substantially across Plum Creek, and that does it. The city's anticipated that. You guys have financed upgrades of utilities to that area, knowing that this was coming, and so in a lot of ways, we're ready for that. It does make sense. We all know that we are a veteran community, and that is a strength of our community. It brings a lot of good folks to this community, and it does offer that additional proximity to Lincoln. So it does meet the comprehensive plan. Makes sense from a community development standpoint. That's where we need to grow. I think makes sense from a nice mixture of lot sizes. I think we're happy with the combination of lot sizes. So there's something for a lot of price ranges, and those are scattered pretty decently so that we don't create concentrations. I think part of what builds a good community is having a good solid mix of housing types throughout. That they're just not concentrated in one area. I think, as Mr. mentioned, one probably disappointment was the maybe lack of seeing some townhome sites or something that was more prone to that type of area, or condominiums. And I would hope that as this thing goes forward, that maybe some of these things can easily be rephased to do that as that demand's there. But I personally think, from what I see, I think there is that demand. And I think fill a niche in Seward. We're happy to see a development like this, and this is a big deal for us, obviously, but it's been a lot of years on the planning commission, one of the frustrations being that because of the economies of scale, we see small developments, and it's tough to get a bigger picture. And here we have a bigger picture of what it looks like. Everything's laid out, and I think well done. The other thing I think we were happy about is one of our biggest frustrations through the years has been drainage, and knowing that that's right. I can't tell you how much is, we've got a planning commission of people who are not engineers, and neither are you. And so it's great to, yeah, well, so.
Careful, careful, shots fired.
Yeah, sorry.
But the fact is that in detail, we can't understand drainage studies. And so sometimes we've fallen down two areas. I think at some points in time, we were maybe sold bill of goods, that it wasn't what it was. And the other part being is that we did not have a city engineer on staff that could follow up and see that. In most cases, I think the problem was when we got to building houses, we didn't follow the plan. So we created problems when grading, and so I appreciate Mike being on board to handle that. So that addresses that. And a lot of the folks are here tonight that spoke last night, and I don't want to speak for them. They'll have plenty of opportunities. What I heard was there were a few objections just to it. The development, and it's based on basically traffic patterns, and primarily on East Seward Street. And I certainly understand there. We all know that's a problem. But I think the majority of those folks that spoke, and like I said, they'll have their opportunity, did not, aren't saying don't do the project, saying don't let this project screw up our street, create any more of a problem than we already have, because it already is a problem. We did have two no votes on this, and a defeated motion to table this. The two commission members, and this is not my opinion, I did personally ask them in anticipation of this. Their concern was they would like to address the concerns of those citizens on East Seward Street and table for a month to see what's happening. Motion was defeated because the majority of the planning commission felt that there is time for the city to answer these questions. It's not like once this gets through council tonight, that tomorrow there's going to be 371 houses, or 170 houses and 370 trips up and down South Seward Street happening in a day. That's not going to happen. There's time to address those problems. The traffic problems in particular, I think, center on two things. One, a very localized need, and that's East Seward Street, which needs an immediate answer. These people need an answer on that, and I think the city needs to get that done. So I think there needs to be some constructive discussion on and involving every bit of stakeholder to figure out what the best solution is. And there is not a solution that's going to make everybody happy, because somebody's going to have access cut off, or somebody's going to have too much traffic. One of those two things is going to happen, and probably a bunch of them. But I think the stakeholders need to get together and figure out, okay, what is the solution there?
Ron, can I have you finish up your thought,
Yeah.
and then we can have some questions for you.
The really bigger problem we need to address is north to south traffic in Seward, and primarily Columbia Street. We all know that's a problem, and it is time to address it. This development is not that problem there, okay? The problem of Columbia Street traffic is going to exist if this doesn't go through. There's a demand for lots. If this doesn't go through, we're gonna have to go north and find lots. And so instead of having these vehicles heading on Columbia north, we're going to have vehicles from North Seward heading to Lincoln down Columbia Street. So it doesn't doesn't solve the Columbia Street problem. I would really encourage the council, and it's time to have a constructive conversation with Seward County and talk about getting a bypass around Seward, utilizing, obviously, well, Waverly Road and Bluff Road or Hillcrest and connecting to Highway 34. It's time that gets done. And like I say, I think we need to have some constructive conversations about that and get the county on board to get that done. So,
Thank you, Ron.
any questions?
Appreciate for the synopsis.
Yeah.
Any questions for Ron on the planning commission meeting last night? Yes, Greg?
I have a fun one.
Okay.
I did receive a message from Chairman Wallman, post this meeting to kind of peruse this discussion of taking a look at meeting up with the county and starting this discussion of where are we gonna go with a north-south access. And so my first question was, I wanna get some information from the county and kind of match it up with our comprehensive plan information. And so I called Becky at their planning office and found out that they are right in the middle of their comprehensive plan that they haven't updated since, I believe, 2007. As I was reading through their 2007 comp plan, and there were projects in that comp plan that blew my mind because none of them are done. Including taking Waverly Road all the way to the Garland Spur paved, and also paving 252nd Street from Bluff Road to Highway 34. Were all top 5 projects listed in that comp plan.
And what year was that?
I believe that was 07. It was the 07 to 2030 plan. That's the one that's available online. So I called Becky to inquire about it, make sure I had the right documentation. I was kind of perusing through, and that's when she informed me that they're in the process of updating their comp plan. And so I wanted to share with, I've been so busy today with all kinds of other things, that Becky has an open space for Dr. Wallman and myself to come before the County Planning Commission on the 21st and discuss with their comp plan this exact item. And she said that seemed like the most appropriate thing to do. Now, he might go, hey, I have something better to do on the 21st, but,
March 21st?
yes,
At 7:30
yep,
at the Civic Center?
yep. And so, that's one of the elements so we can get started, because that was the discussion that we had after last night's meeting, is go get ahold of the county and start seeing what they wanna do on this.
And we've tried, I mean, nudging them, like even with the Waverly Road project, is we wanted to work with them, share engineering costs, try to get them to continue that out as far east as they would go. And so we've been trying to nudge them out in the direction, because we know you're gonna have to have a good east and west road to connect with the north and south road eventually. And so those discussions have taken place. It's just a slow process. And obviously, I think having their plan updated at least gives us something that we can point to on paper and say, we wanna talk about this. Cause, 07 was a long time ago to rely on a plan like that when you're trying to address the development like this in real time.
What's our comp plan? When was ours?
18.
2018?
Yep.
And they go for 10 years? or
We
what's
predominantly for municipality when we try to do 10 years.
But that's also kind of dictated by your growth rate and how quickly do you accomplish your targets or your objectives, and it's, does your population support, your growth support those projects? Because if all of a sudden you don't need growth, that's going to maybe determine you're gonna pull back on somewhere if you grow faster than you expected. That's why like traffic counts, just getting access from the highway, you need the traffic counts to support it, or the state won't authorize it.
The process of annexing, can you explain that to me
Well, there's,
for better knowledge?
there's voluntary and involuntary. Greg, do you wanna walk through it?
I'll just speak to this one specifically. The plan for this one for annexation is at the request of the developer. We'll annex as we phase. So, as they do the first phase, we'll annex the first phase, and move through it in a phased approach. So, that's the annexation plan.
When it's
Or-
voluntary, it's a lot faster process typically than if it's involuntary. So when the developer wants to be annexed in, it's usually not as big of a deal, but, does that help answer your question? Are we good with,
Yes,
you good?
thank you. Ron.
Okay, I think we're good. They reserve the right to call you back up though.
Okay.
No, so don't
Yes,
go
you
too
can't
far.
leave.
So, unless you have other questions or comments from the council at this time, for anyone, we're gonna open up the public comment portion of the public hearing. As I stated before, if you wish to speak, come up to the podium, state your name and address for the clerk's record, and then there's a sign-in sheet as well, just so we make sure we spell it right. So, welcome.
Hello, good evening, everyone. My name is Marcia Carl. I've lived at 194 East Seward Street for 35 years. I really don't have a problem with the new development in itself. But I do have a problem with the amount of traffic that the development is going to create. I'm pretty sure you've all looked it over. And by looking at it, you can see, of course, that there's two exits going on to East Seward Street. We've already been dealing with the issue of this with the speed and congestion from development by Ridge Run, the dog park, and so this is just going to add to it. Last night, Jan Matsky gave some traffic counts on some of these roads. The average traffic count on East Seward Street currently is at 600 a day. This could easily double or triple with this development. And these vehicles would be entering and exiting Columbia, which currently has a count of over 6,000 vehicles a day. So that tells you right there what's gonna happen up at the corner. We already have vehicles getting backed up during morning commute. We have vehicles getting backed up on Columbia that are trying to turn east because the traffic is coming off of the highway 34 and coming down to Columbia. I don't think any widening or resurfacing of Seward Street is going to alleviate the problem. I mean, what's that gonna help? The congestion is still gonna be there. So there really needs to be some way to divert a lot of this traffic out in this area over to 34 so that there's a better flow of it coming into Seward and down Columbia or onto whatever exit they want to take, instead of this bottleneck of all these cars getting lined up and trying to get into this morning traffic or getting across it or turning. It's pretty ridiculous. And also, what Ron was talking about, there does need to be a road that goes to the north of town. We've talked about this several times in a couple different meetings that we have had. Something that would run out of Ridge Run, and now with this area, you know, something, because everybody's going north, so the schools to, you know, churches, everything like that, everything's on the north side of town. But yet they're all trying to feed in and up our street and then head off to the north side of town.